Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. And Misty, Mrs. Wayne, thanks for joining. Saga, hello. Jason, thank you. We're going to go ahead and give this just a couple more minutes. We want to make sure we get as many people on board as we can, obviously. So let's throw some music out there. Let's see. Rock. It's always good. I just love rock. So for those of you who are in the path of this Arctic blast, hopefully everybody is staying warm and that you've got, the faucets dripping, the cupboards open. We're supposed to get here in Middle Tennessee anywhere between, I think they said like 3 to 6 inches, but every model they have is kind of up in the air. So we'll see what we actually really do get. Let's see who else we have here. Hey, kid, thanks for jumping on. So we've got a wonderful guest tonight. Fair warning, I'm going to throw this out there. I'll throw it out again just before I bring my guest on. He does use a lot of curse words. So if that's something that bothers you, please beware and know that, it's just part of the vocabulary at this point. And he's been in quite a long time, emphasis, all that good stuff. So also, Jim, thank you for showing up. Glad to have you here. Let's see, what else is going on? So, we've got that big storm coming. We're supposed to be seeing snow starting here pretty quick. And then, of course, Monday, thankfully, is a holiday on this side of the country for us. So I don't have to worry about going into work, but I also got notification that we don't have work on Tuesday. And that's the plus side of not having the equipment to plow snow. So pretty fortunate in that regard. So, all right, let's go ahead. I want to, again, introduce my guest. He is a Marine Corps veteran. His name is Jason Lee Morrison. So everybody, please give Jason a very warm welcome. Hey there.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I like the rock, but you need to get into like some other shit because that's pretty lame. Like typo negative or
yeah, I'm really limited in the background.
I'm just messing with you.
I actually was looking for, I want to get some cadence, right? That I can play for the different the different stuff, and then some other rock music. But
no, I appreciate that.
I have to watch out for that copyright. So it's one of those.
Well, you got to ramp people up for me because it's going to be pretty boring from here on out. So I'm glad you got that.
Doubt that. Somehow I doubt that. So let's see, just to kind of throw a few out there. So we have, this is my son who's currently in the Marines. That is my son, Grant. And let's see, of course, this is my husband. So we have my husband.
All right, you got a shitload of Marines on board.
Well, Jason's not military, and neither am I.
Either way, bro, sorry I call you.
But I do have.
We're doing pretty good here so far.
Well, your family, and I think I told you this before, because Jason and I are Marine parents. We 2 out of 3 of our children are Marines, and hopefully here shortly, before too long, we'll have the oldest Marine on coming on the chat. So
you got grandchild on the way who's going to join the Marines real quick.
I think it's a little early yet to know where.
Wouldn't be a bad idea to just start nursing them that way. It's not a bad thing.
As much as I want more grandbabies, right now I've got 3 grandbabies and a male grandbaby, but they're still rather young. But so I agree with that. Start working them into that.
We'll see how it goes. But the Marine Corps so far is like the one sane place you can go after high school to be in the clear. Like, holy shit. Actually, we were having a conversation about this, a friend of mine. And, all this, there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on, all these weird little diatribes of, like, what are we fighting? What are we fighting for as a culture? Like the whole transgender issue, and there's all these other racial issues and all this stuff going on, and all these people are like, they're in a it just seems like they're really confused.
Yeah.
And I don't want to I'm not insulting anyone because I've been confused in my life before. You can't insult someone who's confused. They're just confused. They just don't know. And I've seen a lot of like people hating on the new generations and stuff, which is just stupid because the generation comes from the old generation. So
right. Absolutely. That's exactly what I say. Where we are today with our children is based off of what we have done.
They don't learn anything you don't teach them.
That's right.
Whether by example or anything else.
It's funny.
But what I'm saying is, it might be. I shouldn't say this, but might be time for a good war.
Oh goodness! One of the things. So when Grant was in. He graduated boot and went into SOI and they were sitting there and holding. I'm sure you remember all of that, how that goes, and you're waiting to go to the fleet. And he calls and he's just all in this uproar. And he says, Mom, you can tell these kids have never been beat a day in their life.
No, really. when like, and what I mean by like, a good war, I don't mean like I hate war. It's horrible.
Right.
It's horrible. And like we went into Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff, and I was in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Israel during the Hezbollah thing in 2007, and all of it's hell.
Right.
But for the people sitting and fighting there, you understand something about your existence, and that is all this other stupid bullshit doesn't matter.
It doesn't mean anything, right?
You can be transgender, stick it where you want. I don't give a fuck. But when people start shooting at you, you're like, I love and trust this person next to me. I understand what my value is as a human being to them as well. Because if I fail, it will cost them something that they will have no capacity to say, don't worry about it, bro. When they're gone, they're gone.
Correct. It's life or death.
And when they're done, it doesn't matter who they were. You let them down if you're thinking about where you want to stick it. And that does not. What I'm saying is that stupid shit does not. It just doesn't enter into that realm of reality. Right. And I don't know. Maybe I'm off here, but the greatest generation, we call it, was the one right after, the guys that fought World War II, and they were. And you know why? And the crazy thing is they didn't have the VA. And they did barely. The World War I guys got that going, but they trusted in each other, and they had a support group because pretty much every one of them was over there. And so my grandpa, who's a Navy guy, but he knew guys who were in the Army and Europe and everything else, and he was the Pacific. It didn't matter. They all had someone to relate to.
Right.
And the Vietnam guys got totally, but there were a lot of them too, and they kind of made their own networks and stuff eventually, and that's how they helped themselves because no one else was there for them. And with us, we have to kind of do the same thing and reach out to each other, and because no one else really gets it. There are a few like docs out there that understand because they've been in the shit, but most of the guys that are like, I'm a psychiatrist, I'm here to help you with your PTSD. I'm like, yeah, have you been in a gunfight before, buddy?
What can you really do for me? And sometimes though, just to talk to somebody who has no thought one way or the other makes a difference because they don't have a dog in the fight. You know what I mean? They can't use their own experience and try and compare what they went through to what you've gone through, because obviously they, each person has their own story and their own experiences. So in a way, just being able to talk to somebody can help get that.
No, and
out.
you're absolutely right. And I shouldn't say that too negatively, because and by the way, I love you too, Sonny. I see you, motherfucker.
I made sure I posted that out there.
Sonny, that's Lee Deckelman. Sonny was
Yes.
his call sign in Ramadi, and we
Yes.
did some crazy stuff together. But
and I can see what your call sign was, Elvis. I see the hair. Yes.
But I got a great singing voice too, but I'm not going to do that.
Maybe one day you'll share.
Yeah, I never did for my team either.
No,
I showed up with big sideburns and like a big collar, back in the day, we were kind of like, we made a lot of money because we were basically mercenaries for the military, for the U.S. DOD, or not DOD, I'm sorry, Department of State at the time. And so they paid us a lot because, frankly, the reason why that happened was that was it Rumsfeld and who was the Department of State head at the time? It was
what year was this?
General. Someone help me out with this. Who's the Department of State head during GWAT, the invasion of Iraq? Anyway, the DOD head walked into it. I've read about this. There was a meeting with G-Dub and
Colonel Powell.
What's that?
It wasn't Powell, was it?
It was Powell. It was
Powell. Colin
yes,
Powell.
It was. Okay. And he was a GO. He was a general officer, so he knew what he was talking about. He was like, okay, so what happens after we win this thing? And DOD was like, you're on your own, State Department. So the Department of State was like, what do? We got to start hiring mercenaries because they had no other option. So, and I get I catch so much shit from former veterans like, hey, you weren't really a veteran because you worked for money. Like, you're goddamn right it did, because I wanted to get into the war. So fuck you. I don't give a fuck.
And sometimes we have to do.
I wanted to fight in wars, and I did as a Marine in the OIF-1, the invasion of Iraq. And so anyway, but I catch so much shit from other veterans like, oh, you were a contractor. You know what? You didn't love war enough to do what I did. And I don't love war. I wanted to prove to myself what I was to myself. Right. I didn't know.
And I think that's great, because sometimes we just don't know until we push ourselves to find out. So,
well, the problem with that is that you never push yourself in the guys that chase war. You can never prove yourself enough. And it kills you in the end. Or you get out and you never have proven yourself to yourself, because there's always someone who's done something more. And so I will caution you on that. I actually have a friend, Kirk Spradley, who was a recon Marine, then he became a friggin' Apache pilot. I mean, the guy's done everything. You should talk to him, actually. He just wrote a book called...
You'll have to set me up with this gentleman.
Okay, I will. Yeah.
I need somebody for next Sunday. So
actually, I was thinking that you shot me that before when we were talking. And I was thinking of Kirk, but he just wrote a book called it's called what was it? Dude. I'll think of it. But the reason I'm blanking on the name of his book is because the underlining title is A Precautionary Tale. It's War Junkie. War Junkie.
Okay.
A Precautionary Tale.
I'm going to write that down.
Bradley. And he
I can find my pen.
No, I'll make sure you guys get in touch.
Awesome.
But
awesome.
Kirk is an amazing example of someone who just he's gone after it. And I think, did you know that there's an 80 to 90% 80 to 90% of everyone in special operations has like severe childhood trauma.
That does not surprise me, because a lot of people now, not all, but a lot of people in general will join to have or find that discipline and direction that they were missing in their
That's
childhood.
true. That's very true. And like that outside influence, like everyone thinks, oh, you're a Marine, especially the Marine Corps, because they're very self-disciplined. And I'm not self-disciplined at all. I'm a fucking total clusterfuck. The Marine Corps created an environment within which I could excel because it gave me walls and allowed me to fuck up. And I fucked up a lot, but just fuck up this much. Don't fuck up any more than this. You know what I mean?
Here's your limit.
But I did. And I tested those boundaries. But the thing is about special operations guys is the funny thing is too that most of us are artists at the heart of it. I've seen so many guys come out of it and be like painters or writers or musicians or whatever. And it's like, what the fuck, really? And because most of us don't think the same way that most other military guys think. But let me go back to this part I was talking about with the high percentage of like child trauma, and that is that we can compartmentalize things very well, and we can put the pain away and make it not matter. The problem is that stuff builds up after a while. And once you get out, you got to do something with it. You have to, or you will destroy yourself. But for creating, in order to make someone function, I mean, religion does this. Catholicism's great at it. Guilt yourself into the best performance possible. It works great at it. It does. Actually, all religions do it. I'm not talking shit about Catholicism. Every religion does it. They guilt that's a really valid point until you function properly. That's not.
Or you function to society's standards.
Yeah, fuck society. Like whatever standard you're after. If you want to be a special operations guy, you're way above society's standards. If you want to do that and you deep down like hate yourself because something happened way back when you were 7 years old or whatever, and you don't even really realize it, you can make yourself function and produce by beating the shit out of yourself. And this is something that all this PTSD and all this other shit that I went through after the wars helped me unpack all this stuff. And that works to perform. Yeah. It does. Yeah. Whether it's a religion, whether it's freaking, and I'm not saying that there aren't certain, well, I have a certain belief system that I believe is true, and it's been called a religion before, but the religiosity and the legalistic side of it, and I'm not going to go into that because I'm not going to, if you can't get there by yourself, fuck you. Sorry. Pursue the truth, and if you pursue it long enough, you'll find it. And I'm not going to tell you where to go because then you're just going to say, oh, this one guy told me one day that to go here. Just fucking look what's right in front of you, goddammit. Yeah. Anyway.
Go ahead.
So my point is that like a lot of special operations guys have struggled their whole life, but they can compartmentalize pain and they just put everything in a box, like the don't think about it bucket, I like to call it. And it works really good to make you perform. And especially if you like have this fucking deep burning angst against you, who you really think you really are. Like you can make people not think you're that. You can make people think you're Superman, everyone around you. And you might actually, you probably are Superman, actually. That's the crazy thing about it. Like you're not the piece of shit you think you are. You actually really are the badass motherfucker that everyone sees you as, because that's what you're performing as. But when you have this, there's a lot of insecurity that goes with going to war. And that's why I wanted to go to war, is I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't a pussy, because deep down inside I actually really thought I was. And I had to prove to myself that I wasn't. And that came from me, like dealing with some shit when I was a kid, but I didn't know how to sort that shit out then.
Right.
The best answer to all of this is to actually understand who you really are, and like pat yourself on the back, which
Right.
the military never does, because they can't. Because if a guy is like tier 1 Delta Force Super Ninja CIA, whatever the fuck, and you're like, you're the best in the world, guess what's going to happen to him next? He's going to get shot in the face because he thinks he's so good.
Right.
That undermines your ability to perform. So the military never tells you you're awesome.
Now, and Sago says Marine Corps is really good at making self-punishment a good catalyst for performance.
They milk this shit. They do. And you know what? And they should. While you're there, right. Because when you're in a gunfight and you're thinking about how awesome you are, guess what's going to happen next? You're going to die.
Right.
Because you're going to get shot in the face because you think you got it all together. Because if you understand that the environment is, and here's the crazy thing about guys that have been in a lot of combat is that they actually feel at peace in war more than they do in peace.
Right.
Like it makes sense when it's all crashing down around you. And that's why like PTSD is, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place here.
That's all right. I am going to jump in though here, and
okay,
because you did talk a little about your childhood. So let's jump back a little bit to the beginning, and just kind of give me a synopsis about your childhood, your education, and high school and such.
Yeah, Jesus. Okay. So,
unless you don't want to, but
no. My childhood was amazing, actually. I first memories I ever had are of being in an airplane. It was a Super Cub.
Oh.
And we were flying to the tribe. Or no, it wasn't a tribe. I was in Indonesia on the island of Sulawesi. And we were flying from Palu to Bangkaito. Bangkaito was a little town that my dad had hiked into several weeks before and built an airstrip. So the plane could land with my family and I. And he was a lumberjack in Idaho. So he knew how to cut down trees. So he built an airstrip. And and the plane landed. That's my first memory, I think, is flying in that airplane because it was scary as shit. But I was 2 years old, maybe 3.
What took you to Indonesia? I mean, other than your dad
they were missionaries.
Okay. And
so they went in to teach Jesus to the people. And these people were like millenniums behind us. Like this is like if you walked into the Garden of Eden, you're like, hey, what's up, Bill? What's up, Adam? Eve, how you doing? Like that's how they're doing. Oh, you got loincloths now. Good for you. Like you come around a little bit. Like it was humanity, but way back then.
Right.
And the thing that and growing up in that and seeing how we used to be, and this was us many years ago, and seeing how it started and how they thought and believed and all those things really made, experiencing that along with all the war stuff and all the other stuff I've done, really like it's allowed me to see humanity as something really beautiful. And but yet still, I don't know. Let me get back to your question. But humanity is an amazing thing, and I think if we don't understand what it is, we don't really get who we are, because we are components of it.
That's right.
And actually, humanity it's an organism. It's like a sea anemone kind of. but it's not connected with tissue. It's connected with sentiment. So like a sea anemone, you'll see like the waves flow, and the sea anemone will rock and flow, and the different components of it will, do their thing. It's connected through sentiment and relationship. And that understanding helped me understand, for one, the value of relationship. It's just as elemental as element, just as entity. Relationship is just as elemental as entity. Like an atom does not exist without a relationship of the electron with the nucleus. It doesn't. And it's electrical. You can define that relationship however you want, but it's not a thing that connects those two. It's a relationship.
Right.
So without those three things, without a nucleus, an electron, and a relationship between the three of them, there's no such thing as an atom. And that's what links humanity together. And when you realize that, and you understand that, when you get pissed off and you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and it trickles down. And you know who gets the brunt of it? Is the kid or the dog or the person that had a bad day as well. And you have to understand that, like, you have to be able to control the energy between a relationship. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm taking total rabbit trails right now, but it's kind of how I think. Anyway, so back to my childhood. Born in Idaho. When I was 2, my parents moved to Indonesia. We went to a tribe in Bangketa, or tribe in Indonesia. They did that for a while, and it was amazing. Living we were like right on a beach in Indonesia, so you could see dolphins and shit out there splashing around every day. It was like old man of the sea kind of shit. And I grew up there for probably the next 3 years, and then we moved to another place in Indonesia, Borneo. You've probably heard of the wild jungles of Borneo. It's called Kalimantan now, but anyway, we lived there for another 13 years or so. And so that's where I grew up, in a third world country, and very much in between cultures, because I wasn't Indonesian, but I wasn't American. Culturally, nationalistically, absolutely I'm American through and through, and I love this country and everything it stands for, at least everything it used to stand for. Let's get back to that. But I don't want to talk about politics. I'm just saying it's a great experiment. I think we should kind of keep driving along the lines of what's been successful in that experiment. But and even in politics and stuff, I see things very objectively, because I came from another country.
Right.
So when I look at the U.S. political landscape, I'm like an outsider. It's kind of weird. I've always been like the outsider. When I was in Indonesia, I was the outsider. I was looking at the Indonesian culture. I was looking at the American culture. My parents were American. I was something different. The Indonesians were Indonesian and tribal and all this stuff. And I had to understand their context. And this is called empathy. And everyone thinks empathy is you got to feel the same way the other people do. That's bullshit. No, you got to understand what's making them feel that way. That's what empathy is. Right? So when you get inside their head and you're like, oh, if I say this, they're going to understand it this way. That's like, you got to get down a few layers. So understanding like where the Indonesians thought I was coming from when I talked to them as an American, that was the only way. That's the way I learned how to communicate as a kid. So whether I used the Indonesian language or not, it was like, depending on the graduation of my ability to speak their language. But that really helped me later on in building it a very, like, it sounds cliche, but an empathetic outlook on a lot of things. And even in war and stuff, I just always thought of myself as like, it just always seemed like I was from an objective viewpoint. I wasn't
always outside looking in.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Very much. I
So
don't know.
did
Go
you
ahead.
graduate from Indonesia, or did you come back to the States and go to finish high school here?
No, I graduated high school in Indonesia, but it wasn't an Indonesian high school. It was a high school of, expat kids, stuff like that. It's like 30 of us, it wasn't that big.
Sounds like
But
my
it was,
husband's graduating class. So
it was a great education. I mean, seriously, it wasn't like one of these European boarding schools where you're getting, like Hogwarts and shit. but, but it was like, it was rudimentary, but it was a very good education. So I was trained very well, in the basic. We didn't have a lot of advanced like courses and stuff. Like I didn't get to take physics, which really bothered me because we didn't have a physics teacher the year I wanted to take it, whatever. But I did what I could, and the things that I learned very well. And I had a learning disability, which I didn't know about at the time.
okay.
ADHD, like out the yin yang, but we didn't know anything about that. So I had to learn how to learn in this unique environment, and it helped me. It helped me basically. If I learn something, I know it forever. But I
Well,
got to learn
that's
it the
great.
way that I learn it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
So
do.
like, and I don't know. I think it served me very well. But I'm not like, it's not like something you'd think of as like a school where you go and you get like advanced mathematics and stuff like that. It wasn't to that detail, but it was a very, I have no, my childhood was amazing, except for some things that happened to me when I was very young, which, like I said, I fall into that 90, 80, 90%. And that was
Right.
something else. And I think you kind of derive that from my dancing around it. That influenced me greatly. But other than that, my childhood was amazing. It was, and I remember we'd fly back to the States every 4 years for about 6 months. And
Oh
I went
wow.
to Idaho, and so I went to like high school, like as a freshman in Kellogg, Idaho. And I remember the teachers when I was getting ready to leave, they're like, "I'm so sorry I have to go." I'm like, "What? Do you even know where I live?" I live in the most amazing place on planet Earth. And anyway, it was amazing. It was wonderful to grow up and live in a different culture and be able to truly, and that later on when I would go to other places on planet Earth, I kind of had a better understanding of the cultures and the peoples there.
Well, I'm going to guess it made it a little easier for you than where, for one, obviously you knew what the US is about and their culture, but also other cultures outside of the US, even before you began with the Marine Corps. So that had to have helped you some, I would think.
Oh,
Am I off?
absolutely. But then I was a young kid. I didn't realize what I had. But
Right. But looking back,
oh, absolutely, definitely. And I got to see. I mean, it's like I said, it was amazing to be able to see the human cultural evolution, because human cultural does evolve. Human
right.
culture
Oh,
does,
yeah, 100%.
and just to see that from where it was maybe 10,000 years ago, whatever you say, however old humanity is, to you're seeing that in Indonesia, seeing it in Iraq, seeing it all over the world. And then working in New York City, I was a VP of a big company there for a while. And just, I don't know, just that perspective on who we are as an organism. And then
Right.
who I am in the midst of that. And then being able to like derive from that the understanding of all that culture and society and my parents and race and and the wisdom of the people behind me and my lineage that have injected into me, this is what blew my mind. I am the best person at what I do best, that only the way that I can do it, who has ever existed and who will ever exist. That's how humanity works. It sharpens every node. Like every living part of humanity is only the best of what's come from before them. Or let me say, only the most intense, probably, of what's come before.
Yeah, okay.
Because sometimes humans pick up bad habits and everything else, then they get that intensity. But I was fortunate to have and I think the beauty of it being a human being is that you can judge which things that are injected into you as a human you want to do away with and you want no part of your life, and what things you want to accept, and everything in between.
Exactly.
And you get to sharpen yourself.
Yeah.
And you can become I mean, if you're the best at making freaking cream puffs that you know of, look, I don't know you very well, but I don't know anyone else like you. I guarantee you don't know anyone else like me. I guarantee all of your friends, you don't know anyone else of your friends is like, oh, you're just exactly like this other friend I know. No human being is as same as any other human being.
That's right. That's right. Now, there might be some characteristics that are the same.
Absolutely. But here's the thing.
Remind
you the best at the way that only you can do it best. You're the best at that's ever been.
That's right. That's right.
That's not Tony Robbins bullshit. That's true.
Yeah,
like if you're the best at cooking meth that you know of.
Well, congratulations.
Dude, you're fucking congratulations. Now I don't recommend you go in that direction.
Yeah, let's not.
My point is this: what you do best, the way that only you can do it, is the best it's ever been, and it will ever be.
Yeah, that's true. And then when the next generation comes upon, and they take a little of what I've given them, and their dad has given them, and they go out and do something, it's going to be the best that they have ever done, that has ever been.
Well, not exactly. Yeah, because no one else will ever be able to replicate your personality and all that goes into how you make frickin' cream puffs.
Exactly.
Or anything else. Anything else. It will never be replicated, ever.
So let's go to your to boot camp. So this is the question I ask all of my guests. You ship out, you're there at boot camp. Were you over at Paris Island, or were you there in California?
San Diego, yeah.
Okay. And so you're sitting there, you're going through boot. Do you remember for you how long it was?
I remember it. Boot camp was interesting because it was definitely a wake-up call. I remember, the wake-up call for me came when I was a squad leader. They made me a squad leader. And the drill instructors let me talk to the other squad leaders from some of the other platoons after everyone else had gone to bed, because it's the only time you had.
Right.
And these guys showed up and they're like, look, if you want to not get fired, you have to work after everyone else goes to sleep. You have to invest yourself in this, because it's not just a you don't just get to do what everyone else does. You have to get up earlier than everyone else. You have to go to bed. You have to wake up in the middle of the night when you're not supposed to. Iron your camis. Shine your boots better. You got to be better than everyone else. And you have to learn. Well, the thing is, too, leading by example isn't just about doing the right shit. You got to learn the right shit to do. And
well,
learning
just that. That's the
time.
first step. Yeah. Yeah.
Learning takes time. So you have to study more than everyone else. You have to know more than everyone else. You have to do better than everyone else at everything to be a good leader.
Yeah.
And this was probably a month into, maybe 3 weeks into boot camp. That was my first real lesson in leadership. Like, if you want more than what everyone else is getting, 8 hours a day ain't going to cut it. Sorry, pal. If you're working at UPS, you better be putting in 10, 12 hours a day at UPS if you want to become something at UPS. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yeah, it takes
You
a
can't
lot of
just
effort
do what
to
everyone
get-
else is doing and expect to get better results. It just doesn't work. That's not how that shit works.
Yeah.
In life. So I don't know what it is that you're doing in life, but if you're only doing as much as everyone else is doing, you're like, why am I not getting promoted? That's why.
There you go.
But anyway,
So-
it was really good, and I took that with me when I ended up in recon and was doing. I understood that, and I took that lesson with me all throughout my life when I was working in government as a independent consultant. I was doing technology consulting for them, and I was in New York City. I was working as a VP of operations at a big company there. That one lesson from boot camp stayed with me forever. But boot camp as a whole, like, it's 12 weeks long. It sucks. It's a kick in the nuts. Like, it's great. It's good for you.
It's 13 weeks now.
Oh, good for them. Good. The Marine Corps does do things with humans that no one else understands, because out of that comes something different. And I don't give a fuck if you're Army and you say we're all the same. You fucking idiot. You don't understand. So
it's a Marine thing, just
no, it's not. It's just, I don't know. It's a thing. Like, the Marine Corps knows how to do it right. I don't know. I don't understand what it is. I didn't anyway. But whatever they do, like, I've been in combat with guys from Army Rangers and Army Delta Force and Navy SEALs and Army Special Forces, Green Berets, and any special operations ilk that you throw at me, whatever. I've worked with them. And the ones that have seen the Marines in combat, like in Ramadi and stuff, like Lee Deckelman can vouch for me. He's a former Green Beret and Army Ranger. Marine infantry is the most dangerous fucking thing you will ever encounter in your life. They're really good at killing people. And that's what they do in boot camp, and that's what they create. Now anyway, so somehow, I don't know how they do it. Like I said, the recipe that they have works. And I went through that, but honestly, my point in joining the Marine Corps, I wanted to be a Navy fighter pilot, actually.
Oh, wow. And what made you decide to switch gears and go into the Marine Corps?
Because, well, I got nominated for the Naval Academy in Indonesia, but they didn't have like an EKG machine or some shit like that, and so my medical portion was incomplete, so they denied my application. So I was pissed. So the next year I did it again, and the damn right on, Killian. and the damn hospital lost my medical stuff again 2 years in a row, and I had been nominated 2 years in a row by a congressman to go to the Naval Academy. So I was just pissed. So I was like, fuck it, I'm joining the Marine Corps, and I'll try to get in after that. But so then I was at School of Infantry, because I just signed up to be an infantryman, because I was like, dude, I read a book in high school about this Army infantryman wrote a book, and I was like, dude, these guys, they get into the shit. They just do. The grunts just always do. Unless it's in peacetime.
Right.
Sorry. Grunts just have it the worst in peacetime. It's horrible. But during war, they're like that freaking axe, break glass in case of war. And the grunts just
kill
everything after that.
I like that.
But while it's during peacetime, they have it the worst out of everyone in the Marine.
Yeah.
They're not like they're what everyone supports. I was in Force Recon, which is the highest echelon of special operations or anything in the Marine Corps up until MARSOC came along, and they work for U.S. Special Operations Command. They don't really support the Marine Corps. They're just a special operations unit that supports the nation, right? And good for them, and they do a great job. Force Recon's mission is to support. Thanks, Lee. Is to support grunts. Like, no matter how badass you think you are in the Marine Corps, you're still supporting that Lance Corporal. Like, that's how it works, and everyone knows that, and that's how it works so well. So, no matter how cool you think you are, the Lance Corporal is the coolest guy there, and you need to work for him to make him not die, because those guys die a lot.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So, you need to, like, make his job easier. So, anyway, just understanding that, for one, as a special operations guy, helped me, one, learn a lot more about the conduct of warfare and what goes on in the whole campaign and everything, because you have to understand that in Force Recon, because you're doing battle space shaping, you're working for the general officer in charge of the battle space or whoever it is. You might be a sergeant, but you're working for the guys running the whole show. Right. But you have to understand every little function that you support and that supports you as well. So anyway, I forgot where I was going with that diatribe, but
that's okay. So is there a difference between just recon and Force Recon, or is it all the same?
Well, now I think it's all in one battalion, but the mission, the Force Recon mission, Force Recon supports the Marine Expeditionary Force. So when, like, during Iraq, during OIF-1, the MEF, Marine Expeditionary Force, they had the general officer that was in charge of a certain battle space. That was, remember the lanes they showed you? The Army is doing this, the Marines are doing this, going up to Iraq. This is their assault lanes, basically.
Okay.
It's called a battle space. So Force Recon, their job is to support the Marine Expeditionary Force Commando. That's where the word force comes from. It's not from like, hey, I'm going to do reconnaissance, then I'm going to punch you in the face afterwards. That's not. We do that too, but
just for fun.
So Force Reconnaissance comes from your support. You're in support of the Marine Expeditionary Force. We used to call it Division Recon, which is the recon battalions. It used to be recon battalions. Yeah, it is all in one now, but the missions are still separate. So you have recon Marines that support the Marine Expeditionary Force, and then you have Marines that support the infantry battalions. And they go, so the difference is, according to military doctrine, if you read the doctrine on it, the recon battalion guys, quote unquote, just say the recon mission in support of the infantry units, like battalion level, is from, I think it's 3 to, what is it, like 4 or 5 days in front of the FLOT. The FLOT is the forward line of troops. So however fast the forward line of troops is moving, they figure out, like, okay, so recon battalion, what we called it back then, they'd be like maybe 5 days in front of the forward line of troops. So in 5 days, this is what we're going to get. So I need recon to make my battle space look the way I want it by the time I get there. If there's a bunch of tanks there, I want them destroyed. I want airstrikes here. I want artillery here. I want blah, 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 blah. So from 3 hours to like 5 days in front of the forward line of troops. Force Recon is from 5 days to like 2 weeks. Like, basically indefinite, depending how long they get there. So you could be like 400 miles deep calling in airstrikes and shit like that.
Right.
Blowing up bridges. You're shaping the battle space so that when the general gets his troops where he wants them to go, there's a bridge where he needed it to be. There's not a bridge where he didn't want it to be. There's no tanks where he didn't want them to be. Right. You're creating the war, basically. And it's awesome, because what I loved about recon is that, I mean, I love officers and everything as much as you can as an enlisted guy. Great people, but they fuck up a lot. But in recon, this is when, like in the SEALs and Green Berets and everything, there's always an officer in charge. In recon,
go figure.
Enlisted guys, you're a sergeant and you're 400 miles deep in charge of a 6-man team, and you're just in the shit. And your officer he's got your back because you got a platoon commander. But his job is to line up air support and manage all the shit that supports you. You don't have 14 guys or 12 guys. Or MARSOC even does this. They do like an officer in charge, and you got 12 dudes, and you split the squad. Even 2 officers now. It's fucking stupid. You don't need that many fucking zeros running around. Anyway, just like putting someone that doesn't know a whole lot in charge of a bunch of shit. Anyway, put a guy that's been doing the shit for many, many, many years in charge of the tactical aspect of it. And that's what I loved about recon. The other side of it is if you fucked up, they just be like, okay, sorry, you fucked up. We're kicking you out and you're going to the grunts. So there was a lot on the line there. So you know, it was like, here's a bunch of responsibility. If you can't handle it, fuck you. So pardon my French, but that's how recon worked. And I loved it like that. It might be the same in the Army LARPs. I'm not sure. God bless all you recon guys, but I like, and the RRD guys, the Ranger Regimental, whatever guys that work, Regimental Recon Detachment that works with Delta. Those guys are badass too. But reconnaissance is the most elegant art form of special operations. I truly believe, and it's very underplayed. Everyone likes run through the building, shoot people in the face. You can teach freaking monkeys to do that. Come on, really, it's an algorithm. It's an algorithm. You got an open door left, closed door right. What do? I mean, really, it is. There's a long hallway in the front. There's a closed door left. There's an open door right. You barricade on the closed door. You barricade on the long hall, and you go. And you rock the open door left. I mean, your tactics might be different than that, but all the cool guy stuff with the cool kit and NVGs and everything, dude. The hardest part of all of that is walking around in the jungle with no NVGs on, stomping around, trying not to die, getting bit by a snake or something. Oh, that's the hardest part of special operations, and it's not in any movies, but that's the hardest thing. And getting really close on target and not getting found out and not having to shoot someone.
That's a good day.
It's a really good day, because if you shoot someone, you got 4 to 6 guys and you're 400 miles deep. You're gonna have a big problem on your hands. Mm-hmm. And the guys that can do that successfully, like that's proper.
Yeah. So we've kind of gone around boot camp. We've talked a little bit about that. Any funny stories that you can think of about boot camp that just kind of come back to you and you're like, damn, I was, shouldn't have done that, or I did something, this one guy did this, or anything that you recall?
Well, not really. Boot camp was kind of, I mean, I guess really what I realized most about boot camp is like, once I was done with it, is that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
Was there a favorite part of boot camp that you enjoyed the most? Like, you've got
getting the fuck out of there for sure. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't difficult. And for any of you guys going to the Marine Corps boot camp who watch this and are like, "Oh, it's going to be easy," good luck. You're gonna have a good time.
It's not easy. I've had 2 kids that have gone through, and so yeah.
But if you ever take that and say, "Oh, I'm a man now. I've done everything," you need to look for the next best thing in the next hardest thing.
Next thing.
Look for the most pain that you can find that would in your life, and go that direction, and you will find what you're looking for. Because people they achieve something like boot camp, like, oh, I'm a Marine. I worked handed out basketballs at the gym, but I was a U.S. Marine. Like, yeah, fuck you. You fucking didn't do shit. Sorry. I know a lot, and I love the Marines. I love Marines most of all, but dude, just because you're a Marine don't mean shit. Like, it's who you really are.
It's inside.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the Marine Corps makes you and sharpens you. It'll make a man out of a fool or make a fool out of a man. people that walk around with a freaking, I don't know. I'm very proud to be a Marine. And I do wear my Marine Corps shit around every once in a while. Mostly because I want to bump into other Marines and say, hey, holy shit, you're a Marine too. Fucking, yeah, whatever. And I like that because there's a brotherhood in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps Mafia is a real thing. I worked in DC for a while, like at a very high level. And there's a lot of like PhDs and freaking guys working in crazy brainiac jobs that were like sergeants and stuff before, and now they're like some PhD that works for DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, building time travel and crap like that. We're working on it anyway. It's hilarious how you'll run into Marines everywhere, and like if you go that route, God bless you. But be a good Marine. Don't be the one that just, oh, I'm done with boot camp, so I can just slack now. That bothers me.
It's about continuing to grow.
It's about continuing to find the most painful thing that faces you and doing that. The obstacle is the way. That's the way. And if you want to be, you can be as challenged in your life as you really want to be. But when you acquiesce that challenge, you're like, and I learned this by luck, actually. I mean, when I was in SOI, everyone was lining up to go down and sign up for recon. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go be a fighter pilot, whatever, because I was wanted to go back to the Naval Academy, like I was saying before. And there was like 200 people lined up to sign up for recon. And I sat in my seat until the last guy, and I'm just like, God damn it. Like, okay, fine. And so I went down there. I was the last guy to sign up. And I'm so glad that I did that. Nothing against fighter pilots. Those guys are badass. And that's a very elegant form of warfare as well. And kudos to them, because those guys are operators as well as any Navy SEAL or freaking Green Beret or anything. His fighter pilot is an operator. He's on his own. He's out there by himself. He just knows how to work a different piece of gear, and he's really good at it. And he gets evaluated on that every single day. So those guys, I think, are the same ilk of special operations, very much. And they know a lot about themselves. But something I've written about before as well. And this is what I learned, not just in the Marine Corps, but especially reconnaissance, like the whole training and everything that went into that. Becoming elite is not about what you know about war. Becoming elite is what you know about yourself. All the trash and hell that they put you through, and knowing I can't do this. You know without a doubt I can't take another step. And you fucking do it anyway. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to hurt even worse than the last step. And you know it again, and you take another step. That right there, that feeling right then is when you get elite. When you start becoming elite. You don't do it sooner. It's not like, oh, this is difficult, but I can handle it. It's when you can't take any more. That's when you start becoming elite. And you don't just become elite at, like, I can work a radio. Give me a new radio. I don't give a fuck. Whatever radio they're using now, I'll take it and give me fucking half an hour and a manual, and I'll figure out how to use it. I can do the tactical stuff. You can go through all the courses you want and learn all the tactical stuff and learn all the technical stuff, about the operations of being an elite warrior. Take everything that 18 Delta does in med school or in the 18 Delta course, where they learn all this medical stuff. Take everything that a freaking a radio operator does in a SEAL, Navy SEAL, or a recon guy or Army Special Forces guy learns about radios and communications, or blowing up a bridge or weapons, whatever. You can do all that you can learn that in a book. Mm-hmm. But you don't know shit about yourself.
Right.
And being elite is about knowing who I am. Who is this? Who lives in here?
Right.
That's what separates you.
So you join the Marine Corps. You've gone through SOI. You're part of Force Recon. what kind of, I guess, if you don't mind my asking, where have you been deployed? Like, what was your first deployment that you can think of that you recall? And
Um,
what was it for you? What did that do for you?
my first wartime, I went all over the place before the GWAT started, whatever you want to call it. But when, after 9/11 and everything, we were just chomping at the bit to do something. And my first deployment really was the invasion of Iraq, OIF-1. So that's the first time someone gave me live ammo and said, shoot people if they shoot at you. I was like, okay, holy shit, here we go. That was amazing because that was like a conventional war, and just seeing all the ass and tanks and
in your wildest dreams, was it anything that you had thought that it would be?
Not really, because I didn't get to do my job, and it really pissed me off. Because back then, everyone thought it was going to be like the first Gulf War, and so everyone was just kind of, all the officers were like, "Oh, we don't want to lose anyone. We don't want to do anything too risky." And force recon is risky. You go in hundreds of miles deep and blow shit up, and there's a good chance you can get killed. So no one wanted to employ us the right way. And, that's still a problem in the Marine Corps, is that the officers aren't trained on how to employ their most elite asset. There's nothing in any of the freaking training that they do to teach them how to employ force recon or whatever. I'm sorry, whatever it's called now, reconnaissance.
Right.
Across the board. So even Scout snipers, and I can't believe they're getting rid of those, which is,
I saw that. I read that
bizarrely.
They just did. I think they just had the last group of Scout snipers go through.
I know, like how
not long
stupid can you be? That program does not cost that much.
I don't know what they're rolling it into. It sounds like, from what I'm understanding, they're rolling it into something. They're not at all.
They're making it into a designated marksman thing. Okay, who aren't caught stalking. And we're getting ready to go into a war in Southeast Asia in the jungle where you need people that know how to stalk. And it's just like, the Marine Corps has this problem. And most of it's caused by officers, and they're fucking stupid. They just, I don't know. I don't understand. Sorry, officers. I got a lot of respect for a lot of you, but most of you are fucking idiots. So I'll just leave it there.
So, okay. So you've gone into Iraq.
Yeah, Iraq. And I was in, so after that, I got out because I thought the war was over. And they wouldn't let me. I was trying to go to Delta Force for a while. And I'm not saying I would have made it. I'm not saying I would have made it, but I wanted to try. So, that's fair. The Marine Corps wouldn't let Marines go over there that year. That was in 2003. That was my end of active service. So I had to either choose to stay into peacetime, what I thought was going to be peacetime Marine Corps again, or get out. And yeah, like I said, it was like, like I said, find the pain and go that direction. I'd kind of done. I felt like I'd be coasting if I stayed in because I thought it was peacetime.
Right.
So I got out and I went to Bible school for a little bit because I wanted to dive into like what's truth here. Like, let's figure out if this is bullshit or not. That's a whole nother diatribe, and it was really good for me. I'm glad I did that. But about halfway through Bible school, the war started kicking off again. So I left early and went back over as a contractor. And then I was, that's where I met Lee. And we were running a gun in Ramadi in 0405. And worked for the State Department. And then I worked for a few other government agencies. I worked in Israel, Palestine, Gaza. No, I didn't really do too much. I didn't do anything in Gaza, but we went down there every once in a while, but mostly West Bank stuff for about a year and a half. And I was there during the Hezbollah war. So I wasn't like a gunfighter in that war, but I was, front row seats. So it was interesting talking to the Israeli soldiers and stuff coming back and seeing them They didn't shoot any rockets at Jerusalem where I was staying because they didn't want to blow up, the Dome of the Rock or anything. But I say Biden from an angry mob in East Jerusalem the day Hamas got elected. That was funny. I carted Obama around the West Bank and throughout Palestine and Israel before he was the president. I didn't know who the fuck he was. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Some Senator Obama or something. Anyway, so I met all these friggin' dipshits, and they're just normal people, just as.
And so your job was to basically get them from point A to point B. Is that?
Yeah, pretty much.
And keep them safe.
Yeah, exactly. Keep them from, because those guys don't have a lot of. I mean, they have a lot on their plate, so I'm sure they're distracted with other things, but. Like reading the environment is not one of the strong points. So, and most of the time it's just peaceful, carting people, congressional delegations and stuff around and this and that. But it was interesting sitting in on a lot of their meetings and like seeing the real inside baseball of what's going on in Israel, Palestine. I think most Americans got it wrong. I did. I understood the history of it because I read the Bible a lot, and I read actually a good book to read is James Michener's The Source, I think it is. Talks about it's like 1,100 pages or whatever. I read it while I was in Israel, and it was a really good like history, historical fiction kind of thing. And I read a lot of other books on the history of Israel and the Palestinian issue and everything. But when you get there, you're like, yeah, it's not so black and white. It's not so cut and dry. So a lot of what I see, all the rhetoric I see flying around on social media and everything, it's just like, dude, shut the fuck up. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Go over there and spend a year there. Don't spend a week there. And that's the thing that bugs me about politicians. They go to Israel and like, I spent 2 weeks. And over the last year, you spent 2 weeks in Israel, Palestine, and you know everything that's going on there. You're full of shit. You don't get it. You don't freaking get it. Like that is a giant snarl of clusterfuck that you have no idea where to start pulling the thread. And, a lot of times they won't listen to people if they don't agree with their politics and stuff like that. So they basically won't listen to half the people on the staff at the embassies and the
that was my next question. If they'd ask you guys why you're there.
No, they didn't ask us anything. But we were just security dumbasses. Actually, I worked with a general officer there. I won't say his name, but he was a 3-star general, and he's a really just good guy. GOs are interesting. General officers, they're mostly geniuses because to get to that level, you have to be. Like, there's so many people vying for that. And some are total pricks, and some are just bright, shining, freaking awesome human beings. And this was one of those guys. And he knew all, Petraeus and all these other guys were his buddy. Like, he'd grown up with them in Odierno.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, he was classmates or whatever with them, Amazing guy. And he actually got me dialed into, like, what was really going on in the whole Iraq thing. He was reading a book called Fiasco. And he's like, have you read this? I said, no. So he said, read it. So I read it, and I was asking him questions about it because it talked about all the stuff with the different general officers and what was going on. And he's like, this is true, that ain't true. So he could point out the ground truth of it. And he said, what do you think about this? And I said, I'm kind of pissed off, actually. But it was cool having his ear because I drove him around for a month or so. I was his AIC, his agent in charge. I was in charge of protecting him for a while, and he was he was one of the liaisons over there for the administration at the time. And he worked with all the LMNOP agencies and all that. So he knew the ground truth, and he actually would ask me, hey, what did you think about that meeting? Because a lot of his meetings I'd be in the room with him on. And I'm like, at first I was like, I'm just a dumbass, I don't know anything.
I have no opinion.
He said, I don't believe that for a minute. What do you think? And so it was kind of interesting, that's the only one that actually asked me my opinion there. But he listened when I talked to him but he was one of the few that understood what was going on because he lived there. You know, you have to
Okay.
be in, just like going to New York City. You can't just go to New York for a week and be like, oh, I know New York. You have to live there for a year or so. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe then you'll get it. Like it's the same as there. But very interesting dynamic going on there. Interesting what's going on right now. But
So how did you and Lee get I know Lee had it in his books, but in his book, but in your words, how did you and Lee become counterparts?
well, Lee is just a very sexy man. No, I'm just kidding. I love that guy. He's like, I love him so much. No, Lee is just, he's funny because he's very unassuming, you know, like you wouldn't think when you see him on the street, like this guy would enjoy killing me. And I've seen Lee standing up on top of it. There were 20-foot T-walls in Ramadi. So these barricades, they're like 5 feet thick at the base, and they go up to like, and it's 1 foot or 2 feet thick at the top, and they're 20 feet tall. And he was standing on top of those with his arms out, like, come on, motherfuckers, like trying to get in a gunfight on his last day in Ramadi. Like, that guy loves gunfights. It's crazy. But he's a medic. Like, his job is to heal people. So
but what happens if he gets shot? Who's going to fix him up, right?
he don't really care. Anyway, Lee.
Lee Deckelman in the house there, everybody. So you know he's out here in the chat with
Lee. That's Lee, the friggin' Be Yoga Strong guy. So the sweetest guy you'll ever meet that could stab you in the neck if you felt like it. Right. But he won't feel like it because he's dealt with his shit.
That's right. His internal volume has gone down.
Yeah, thank God for some of us. But we might need to break that glass in case of war, Lee. I hope if we do, just ramp that volume knob back up and we'll be on the freaking road to hell again.
Oh goodness, I hope it doesn't happen, obviously. You know, for my children and grandchildren, and you know, it's not something a mother wants.
At all. I said that earlier, like, but I think some of the people in this country need a leveling of understanding of what's really important in their lives, and getting shot at will do that for you.
100%.
But I don't wish that on anyone, though. It's
so yeah. Lee had a bunch of in his book, great book by the way. He had photos, like of one where there was like the car got shot up.
Oh yeah.
And was that you that was with him at that time? I can't remember.
Yeah, well, I was driving the limo, and there's a video on it. So yeah, there's a lead car, there's a limo. We call it the limo. They're all armored cars. It's not actually a limousine. It's just
right.
All the important guys in. We're all just gunfighters. So there's the lead car, then you have the limo, and then you have the follow car, and you can switch this around. You don't necessarily go in this order. And then you have like a couple of cars back there in case some shit goes down. They can just like set up a blocking position and fight. And that was called the CAT, the Crisis Action Team or something like that. Anyway, Lee was in the follow car. We got ambushed. They were shooting at me, but Lee caught all the frag and ammo, or all the freaking he caught an RPG that was aimed for my vehicle. And then he caught a bunch of PKM rounds in his window. That was what that was about. So sorry about that, buddy. I just backed up instead of going forward, and so I juked him out of it. So that's what happened there.
That's interesting. I'm actually working on my plugging in my keyboard here. It's about to die. So no, keep going. You're doing good.
Well, no, that's what that was. Yeah. So Lee was in the back seat of the follow car, and he took a good, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 rounds of PKM to the window. And only one round made it through the glass. It made it through this because we had pretty good armor on those BMWs. So But one round did make it through and lodged in his rear headrest. But Lee was wearing his lucky earplug that day, so that saved him. You got to have shit like that. He had this ear; it was disgusting. He had this earplug that he wore all the time, and it had goo all over it. It was fucking gross, but he wore it all the time anyway, and it saved his life. So you never know.
What happens when I'm trying to do two things at once? Sometimes my mind just doesn't keep up. I unplugged the camera and the microphone instead of the one I wanted to unplug. So I was kind of.
Oh, you're good.
So yeah, it's interesting to hear the stories and how, especially where, this is new for me, and where I have both you and Lee, together. And, I've heard or read in Lee's own words about how, he saw what he saw, and to know that you were also part of that, and to hear how you felt about that, and to me, that's just really interesting to hear the differences and how each one of you viewed it.
You know what I would love to do is talk to some of the guys that were shooting at us.
And see how
I would love to have an interview. I would love to. It's like, dude, oh yeah, I was trying to kill you and you were trying to kill me. Like, it would be interesting to me. I would like to talk to some Mujahideen guys in Afghanistan. I'd like to talk to some dudes from Iraq or Ramadi. Just tell war stories together. I think it'd be fun. Like, I don't know if we'd be in the same room, but thanks, brother.
Yeah, you guys are both obviously, brothers from another mother. Just by
definitely,
hearing the two of you talk about each other, I think that's awesome and wonderful, because that is one of the questions that I do ask is, in your time in the military, or in this instance as a contractor, is there anybody that you're still in contact with? And obviously, Lee is one of those people. So
yeah, it's funny though. We don't talk all the time or whatever.
No, but if shit hit the fan, oh my gosh, I said that out loud. My kids are going to be on me because I'm always like, don't.
Oh my goodness! But don't worry, I've made that a normal thing now.
I'm going to be one of those though. I tell my kids, when I hit a certain age, when I get old, I'm going to be one of those who cuss all the time, because I have really limited my vocabulary when it comes to that. And I'm going to be like, I don't care. And then they're going to have to deal with me.
I just think it's a proper use of the English language. So actually, yeah, Lee and all the guys on that team, actually, that was an amazing team. I mean, if we wouldn't have had the personalities on that team, for one, it would have been so stressful. But we were just, it was funny because we'd be laughing in the middle of a gunfight and just bullshit and talking shit to each other on the radio and stuff. And that's how we made it work, because otherwise you can't deal with that kind of stress without those kind of people. And secondly, we had just some really professional dudes on the team. We were here's the thing about special operations, but you see the movies and they're all yelling at each other and yes sir, fuck you. That's not how it works. We're a bunch of fucking ass clowns that don't like the normal military. And we're like, I'll do whatever it takes for you to quit yelling at me if you just leave me alone. And they're like, okay, you have to go do the long walk, or you got to go do SFAS, or you got to go do freaking recon selection, or you got to go to BUDS or whatever. And we're like, okay, just fuck off. And then we all get in the same room. We're like, holy shit, there's a bunch of guys just like me sitting around here. And it was cool seeing that, because that environment when I was with Lee was the first time that I had ever worked with guys from Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Armed Special Forces, and Force Recon all on the same team. It was fucking awesome because we were all the same.
Right. You're the elite
guys. And we didn't give a fuck. There was the SEALs are always a little retarded, but other than that, God bless
Oh
him.
no!
I'm sorry. I love my SEAL brethren. I do. I love them so. But sometimes.
Oh
Anyway,
goodness!
no, I love my SEAL brethren very much. And there is something to be said for understanding what water does to a man and being held underneath it for a long time. Like, in fact, it's funny. I was bullshitting with a SEAL buddy of mine on another team when I was in Afghanistan. I was like, why are these Army guys stressing out so much about everything? He's like, they haven't been held underwater. So that actually me helping myself decompress in a gunfight. I went back to being held underwater and punched in the solar plexus. I was like, oh, don't panic. Got it.
Right.
I mean, that's what helped me deal with. So
take a deep breath and move forward.
Well, you can't take a deep breath underwater.
Well, not underwater. That's true. That's true.
You just have to relax, or you will die. The more you stress out, the faster you'll die underwater.
This is true.
Anyway, I'm sorry talking shit to my SEAL buddies, but they get it. So. Anyway,
we give this platform to everybody. So when we have the SEALs, the Navy on,
oh, dude, I love those. I love those guys. They're fucking awesome. I just like talking shit to them. But anyway, that was the first time we all got to work together, and it was that I experienced, and I think for the most part, and large, because before the contracting came about in that way, because the State Department had to do it because of what was going on between DoD and DOS, there wasn't really that environment, unless you went to the CIA or something like that. There's guys working for different organizations there that maybe are mixed and mashed together, but for the most part, we never really all work together like that. And it was really cool to see, like, for one, what we all brought to the table. Right. And it was cool because our different environments and different things that we grew up in, the knowledge and everything else, like, that we had derived from our experiences in education in our different communities, really made an awesome team. So we all brought some shit to the table.
How long were you guys together as a group?
Well, different guys would come and go, but the core group was probably 8 months or so.
Okay. And that's a long time when you're...
It depends. Some guys drift in and out. Yeah, it is a long time when you're getting shot at every day.
Yeah. Sure.
Because it wasn't like the Army units or the Marine Corps units where the whole unit would rotate out. Like 1 or 2 guys would rotate out every month for a month, and then they'd come back to the team. So there's always like a core group flowing, and then you come back to the team, and you're like, oh shit, a new guy showed up. Well, then we'd figure out,
the dynamic again, right?
Exactly. But it was just 1 or 2 new guys every few months. So, we got them up to speed and everything. It wasn't like you get a whole new unit in every, to replace the old unit. It was a really cool. It was a good way to pass on knowledge, and we went through that whole deployment without losing anyone, which is a freaking miracle, because the guys who replaced us.
So Lee says 2 7-month contracts in Blackwater.
Yeah. So because March of 2005, I think we left.
Okay.
But some guys were there the whole time, some guys weren't. Anyway, but yeah, Blackwater lost. They got blown up on the way out there. They lost 1 guy and like 4 guys wounded on the way there, and they lost a guy like a week later. The sniper got him right in the freaking forehead. The same place as we had been working and stuff. So,
and did that ever cross your mind as you're going down like the same? Didn't you have to go over like the same?
No, what I'm saying is they took our place, they took our contract, they took over for us, and they lost like 2 guys dead and 4 guys wounded within 2 weeks. And we didn't lose anyone in 14 months. So we had a shit hot crew. And the Blackwater guys did too. I know some of those guys, and they were awesome. Nothing against them at all, except for rolling down Tampa and Mambas. That was stupid. But going 45 miles an hour down the freeway where they got EFPs and which they got blasted, but they didn't know any better.
Right.
What I'm saying is the transition of knowledge from one, guy to the next, and then it wasn't there, and they got hit for it. And I feel really bad for them because they lost some really good guys. And I don't give a fuck about Blackwater or whatever. I don't give a shit about the whole what company you're working for. We were all Americans trying to do our job. So, yeah, it was hard hearing that. And in fact, that book that I was talking about by Kirk Bradley, War Junkie, he was in the tower with the guy that got shot in the forehead. Like, he's one of the guys that our plate. Yeah. In Ramadi. Wow. Ramadi was no shit, because here's the thing. I don't know if you remember the Fedayeen. The Fedayeen were the Special Republican Guard. They were the freaking super radical Hussein backing, and they got a huge budget. They had tons of weapons and ammo, and they lived in Ramadi. That's where they were based. So all their families were there and everything. So, Iraq was poised for an insurgent warfare with Iran. They had already had stashed ammo and weapons around in different cache sites all over the place, just in case of an insurgent warfare. But we came in instead of Iran. And the Fedayeen were the baddest mofos in town, and they lived in Ramadi. So when the Ba'ath Party was disbanded in, I think, March or early of 2004, they all went home to their houses with their families where they had been based before, where all their weapons and ammo were, which was in Ramadi. So when Fallujah was such a big deal, Fallujah was run out of Ramadi. Like, all the Zarqawi and all those dudes were in Ramadi managing the whole Fallujah battles and all that. They all surged back and forth from one to the other. So, but Ramadi, you never really saw it on the news, but it was nasty. Like, combat outposts there. Holy shit. Those guys were like, the Marines were at a place called Combat Outposts. It was right at the end of freaking the town. And dude, they were in a gunfight pretty much 24/7.
Oh, wow.
It was the most dangerous city in the world for a long time. And it was insane. So, yeah, there was a lot going on there. You didn't see it on the news. You see Fallujah all the time. But
right. I do remember that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But Fallujah is where they managed Fallujah from Ramadi. But anyway. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was
so you're now out. You're out of the contracting. Kind of what's your, when you get out of that, obviously, you've transitioned to a civilian, but then you go back into, with the contracting, you're kind of back into that military mindset, if you will. And, how is it that you're able to transition back again into civilian life? What kind of resources did you have or utilize, or, what kind of struggle was it, if it was at all?
Oh yeah. I don't want to say it was a struggle. It was just like a giant swift kick in the nuts. Like, holy shit, I suck at this. It's like, I don't know. It's like being in a pressure chamber and then all the pressure's off and you got to operate the same way. But there's no stimulus. It's like being a NASCAR driver and then being a go-kart driver. And you think you suck because you suck at driving go-karts. Because you do. Because you're a NASCAR driver. That's why you suck at driving go-karts. But you think you just suck at life. You don't understand why. And you're actually really fucking good at life. In certain circumstances. But you're driving a freaking go-kart now. You're driving golf carts. You're not driving Formula One anymore. You're a great golf cart driver, but you don't really give a fuck about driving golf carts. It's
right.
There's a lot. But I was fortunate. I found I struggled a lot with PTSD and stuff, and it's in different ways. Every guy who's been in some shit struggles with it differently because every experience is different. And I think that going back to finding out, really understanding who you are, that's what helped me the most, is being able to understand, like, and learn about myself and see, okay, maybe this is for one, PTSD is rough because you don't know what it is. You just start sucking at life, really. And you don't understand what the problem is. And there's a lot of hopelessness and stuff involved in it, because a lot of combat is like you're living every minute of every second. You're living it that second. There's no concept of your future anymore. Because if there is, you're going to fuck up and die. Like, you can't think about what you're going to do when you get home. When you can't, you have to think about living right now. And you do that for a year straight, or however long we were deployed, and you end up kind of acquiescing in the whole future concept. And you have to remember, someone has to tell you. No one told us. No one told me. I just kind of thought of this for myself when I started doing self-analysis. Is like, I have to start building a future for myself again. And like having the childhood shit, like hopes and dreams, like what do I really want to do, what do I really want to be, all that stuff. You have to start doing that again for yourself. No one's going to do it for you, and you have lost it because you've been so focused on the now. And living in the now is comfortable. That's why, like I said before, it's actually kind of nice when all hell is breaking loose, because you find comfort. There's comfort there. I know how to. I've never been so calm as in the middle of a fight. It's weird. Like,
because you're not trying to plan for something that.
Exactly. All I have to think about is right then.
Yeah.
Like, and I know how to do that. I was in a car accident once, and the lady that I was in the car accident with came up, and she was like yelling at me. She said, "How are you so calm right now?" It was just bizarre, and it made me think about it, like, because all I have to think about right now is this, and I can do that. That's easy.
Right. And that goes back to a lot of the, some of the compartmentalizing too that you were taught to do in the Corps, and or any particular branch too. They have that mentality, that compartmentalization.
You have to
and
do
priority. Yeah. So that makes perfect sense to me in that regard. It really does.
The problem is, no one teaches you that stuff, though. You kind of got to learn your way through it, really.
And so, did you have any resources at all that they told you about when you transitioned to civilian?
No.
None? I know they're better at that now.
It's a lot better now, but I think we're still trying to figure this out too.
Yeah.
And
they've got a long way to go.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of tough because the people at the VA and stuff, they're the best people, great people. They're limited by, they have certain constraints and everything, of course, but the biggest problem is, if you haven't been in the shit, you don't really understand. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I haven't benefited from, people that have an acute understanding of what I've been through, even though they haven't been in it. That empathy and that willingness to listen and this and that's helpful. But the best help for us is each other, really. Yeah. That's just the way it is. And I remember going through the hardest times I've ever been through. I just wanted my buddies around, and it's just part of life, because you're like a family, and then you're spread across the globe. Yeah. And it's not like World War II where there's a bunch of, I know maybe one, or actually I don't even know any people in my community that were like veterans during my time. But even so, they didn't do the same shit that I did. World War II and stuff was different. Everyone was freaking in the shit. Not everyone, but a lot of people, they were getting shot at, and they could relate to each other. Is my point.
Right.
And the people that and I've run into a few people. There are one or two guys that I know that I can relate to locally, but there's not that organic support structure of the whole country being involved in a war like there was then. The Vietnam guys had it worse, because they had the same thing. They were spread all over the place, but they had no way of really staying in touch with each other. So I actually went for a long time without talking to any of my buddies and stuff, because I didn't realize how therapeutic it was. And not that I do it for that reason either, but I got back in touch with some people. The Marine Recon Foundation was amazing for me. It kind of helped reintroduce me to some, my old community. By all means, help them out. They're freaking doing amazing things for our community and for veterans.
I have one also that Killian has told me about, and that is Recon Sniper Foundation.
Yes, they're also very active and doing great stuff. So absolutely. These foundations, I never really thought much of them until I kind of got involved, but they're they're run by guys like me, so
right,
they can relate to me. It's not like, but also the reason I never really got involved before then is because I was more in touch with some of the kind of older foundations, like these guys were around from a long time ago, from past wars and this and that. These, like Marine Recon Foundation, Recon Sniper Foundation, these are guys more of, they were doing shit time and place that I was doing it too, and so I can relate more to them, and they can relate more to my experiences and stuff. So there is a value definitely in getting involved in other organizations like that kind of persist the legacy of your old unit or whatever. But these ones are more of like, hey, how you really doing? Come on, let's talk about it. And also Brothers in Arms Foundation. Brothers in Arms Foundation is amazing.
Let's put that out there.
Yes.
Is it a .org? Do you know?
I think so.
Brothers in Arms.
Brothers in Arms Foundation. Yeah. It's they've done so much for me and other veterans, and they also have a thing called Raider Air, which flies it's pretty much in support of Marine Raiders, but when veterans are killed, whether it's combat related or not, they'll take care of their families. They'll fly them places. They'll pay for the freaking dog to get babysat, whatever, while they're at the funeral. I mean, they take care of all the expenses that the military doesn't, and they're very good at filling in the gaps and what do you need right now, and we'll help you with that. I mean, they're amazing. Started by a good friend of mine, Phil Noblin. Anyway, they've helped me out quite a bit during my struggles, and many others as well. So
okay, so here is brothersinarmsfoundation.org.
Yes.
And you said the second one was what?
The Marine Reconnaissance Foundation. See if you can find that. But yeah, they are amazing, especially if you're, of course, in the reconnaissance community. Radio Recon, Force Recon, Recon Battalion. I mean, that's old school. It's not now it's all recon went across the board, but either way. And they do a lot of stuff in support, like the Recon Challenge is a big event that's coming up. I don't know the exact dates, but it's, they do a bunch of running, swimming, shooting, and every team runs for, it's like a grueling freaking kick in the ass, and they do it, and every team runs on behalf of one of our fallen, so they'll hang their dog on the paddle when they get across the finish line. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So all the families of our fallen, members of
reconfoundation.org.
I think that's it. Yeah.
I think it was, is that the right one? Let's double check. Marine Reconnaissance Foundation. So they go by Recon Foundation.
Good. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. Amazing guy running it. Pep Tablata is a recon guy as well. And so, yeah, just a lot of these organizations have started up, and, I was reticent to get involved with them because I don't know. I love talking about, what happened back in the Korean War and stuff. And now I'm way more wanting to get involved in those kind of organizations as well. But for me, when I was struggling, I was like, I don't know if these guys really is their thing. But these ones that we listed, the Recon Foundation, Recon Sniper Foundation, and Brothers in Arms, they're very much along the lines of, hey, man, what's bugging you right now? Let's work on it. Like, what can we do?
Right. So I have a question before we go on to the next topic. I have a question from Jim, and the question was, when you were a contractor, how did you get paid? Was it by the mission? Was it by,
that was it was a daily thing. So
so you just got paid regardless of what you did.
Every day I was in country, I got paid. But that's the thing. Like, if you take a break, you don't get paid. So,
right.
Yeah, I got paid by the day. It was pretty good back then. I don't know what it is now. But that's kind of I think that's still kind of the MO they go by, is like, you get paid. It's a daily rate for every day you're in country. So,
I remember years ago, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, there were a couple of people that I knew that actually had been, they were hiring for those contractors. And somebody specifically that I knew had gone overseas for that. And quite interesting, when she was able to come back and, talk about her story and such little bits here and there. It was just intriguing to me. And assumably you make good money.
What's you that? Do, but it's kind of like being a stripper, really.
Okay.
You make good money and it's fun, but the longer you do it, the less marketable you are to do anything else. What saved me from, and I still know guys that are doing that since 2004. They're still doing it. And of course,
the money's good.
The money's good, but you're away from family a lot. And exactly. If you don't have a family, or if you're okay with that, I'm not dissing them at all. It's great.
No, of course not.
It's a good way to make six figures, like, easy.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of shit going on right now. I mean, you can make well over six figures and whatever. But I just got tired of, I was like, is this all I can do in my life? Is this all I want to do? Like, let me see if my brain works. So I went to, I got my degree while I was in Afghanistan. I was working for someone else. I can't talk about that, but I was doing stuff for them, and I got my degree from some EIO online freaking. I mean, who the fuck cares? It was a degree. And but it was, I was like running missions during the day or at night, and then when I off time, I'd do homework, and it sucked. But I got it done, and I highly recommend you bite the bullet and do that if you're in that, because that's the only way I could get out of it. And it helped me, and I got a job in DC doing stuff that I never would have thought I was qualified for. Because the thing is, especially in special operations, we think that's all we're good at. But what you don't understand is all the other stuff you've learned along with it. Like, there are boardrooms filled with technical guys in DC or wherever across the UD wondering, okay, what do we really need here? And they would love to have someone that speaks some technical jargon and can understand what they're talking about, that has some operational context to walk in and say, this is what the guys on the ground really need. And Like, you don't understand how valuable you are to that. So I highly recommend, and you don't even need a degree in technology. My degree was in international business or something, but I ended up working in technology, and I had to learn fast. But that's just how you do it when you're, you just have to freaking figure that out. But it got to where I was the youngest guy in the room in the middle of a DIA conference room talking about shit that General Flynn was doing while he was running DIA, and all of the shit that I was talking directly to that guy, like shooting him emails and stuff like, your shit in the sock ear is fucked up, sir. You need to work on this and that. And he's
Get
like,
that sir in there.
because I was the only spec ops guy in DC that understood data, like
Right.
big data and advanced analytics and stuff. Like, there's such a huge need for guys that know how to pull triggers to be the interpreters for the nerds, because nerds make stuff, we use it. There needs to be someone in between. And most of us are way smarter than we think we are. We're just so used to pulling triggers all the time that we think we're not getting anything else. And it's
or being told what to do on a regular basis. And when you're now
having
to think on your own and find your own path, that's not always easy.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Okay. Especially special operations, you kind of shy away from people that are telling you what to do all the time. You don't. That's not what. I mean.
Okay.
Your job is to figure it out on the fly, and that's what. And even when I worked in New York, I was working for an advertising and marketing firm there, one of the biggest ones in the world, actually, at a very high level. And the CEO hired me as a strategic consultant to him, and I was like trying to figure out why. But I was telling him stuff that I knew from working, because in special operations, you have to execute the mission when you have to execute it. You can't wait for all the information to come in. You aren't, you have to, well, you can if you want, but then you have less time to do the mission. You have to evaluate all these different variables and figure out when the right time to, that's what I'm talking about, is like people telling you what to do, not so much. You have to figure out when the right time it is to do what you need to do, and you need to know how to do it. So I wasn't like a Harvard MBA type. He could hire those at the yin yang, but he wanted my opinion because I knew how to think differently about things. Because it's not, and I used to tell him this all the time, it's not about what you know, it's about how you think about what you know. You and I could know the exact same information, but if I think about it differently than you do, I could still be right and you could still be wrong, or vice versa. It's how you think about it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to think about the right information, then you're going to fuck it up. So it was, anyway, all I'm saying is, like, you guys that are stuck in the stripper groove of gunfighting, dude, I challenge you, go get a degree, like bite the bullet and take a leap into the friggin' nothing. Like, that is, it's scary as hell, but man, you can do way more than just pull triggers. Like, I'm not saying not to do it. Like, by all means, if that's what you love doing, keep going for it. But I just got tired of, frankly, I was just like, is this all I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Just blast people in the face? I mean, and most of the time when you're, 99.99999% of the time, you're just standing around with a gun waiting for something bad to happen, and nothing does. So,
which is not always a bad thing.
No, that's the good thing. That's why you're there. Right. Exactly. So you're accomplishing your mission. Good job. But is that what you want to do with your life? Like,
yes, exactly.
I saw a buddy of mine who, he's a great guy, and he's really well accomplished in gunfighting, and he's done it his whole life. And he just got a new job with doing something else. I'm like, dude, I love you and proud of you and everything, but is that all you can do? Come on.
Right.
Snap out of it. Like, do something. You are a brilliant dude. You've excelled in everything you put your mind to. And now, don't lie to yourself. Are you getting bored? Are you? If you are, maybe you should have the balls to do something else, because I know you got balls. I know you can do crazy shit. So have the balls to do something different. And that's my challenge to you guys out there.
There you go. So let me interject real quick, if I can. But for those of you that are still out there with us in the chats, go ahead. If you've got any questions at all for Jason, let's go ahead and get those put in the chats. And in the meantime, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. And so, Jason, you have now, here you are now today. You have written a book. You're in the process of a second. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Tell me about your first book. Tell me about that.
Okay. That book is called The Perfect Fucking Life. That's a book I wrote. So let me just say one thing real quick.
Sure.
By no stretch of the imagination am I, like, according to the world's version, a successful I'm not sitting on $1 million in the bank. I don't have a yacht, So take my fucking advice with a grain of salt, whoever you are. But I've found peace in my life, and I found a home, and I found that is the most impactful thing that you can find against the demons that you wrestle with, whether it's PTSD or whatever, is finding your home again. You take it however you want, but and I find that in a person, which is my wife. I find that in a place where I am. I find that in what I'm doing. And very, fuck yeah, I'm going to be make a shitload of money and all that stuff. Of course, I believe that about myself, because otherwise, that's not what I'm going for. I'd rather impact people's lives, but I plan on doing all that shit too. But I'm not saying I'm gonna. But I don't think that's the measure of success. But that's up to you. But either way, right. I want to tell you, I'm not like a freaking super successful freaking millionaire. So I'm not telling you that from that perspective. So, like I said, take what I say with a grain of salt, but listen to it anyway. But so The Perfect Fucking Life was written during the throes of a divorce, lose my job, like all the worst shit that could happen to you after all this stuff. And I literally had nothing. It was interesting because I was I was in the pit, and the PTSD, all that shit was kicking in, and I had nothing. I went from making, $250,000 a year as a consultant to the government to nothing. And I couldn't provide for my kids. It was bad. It was horrible. It was the worst place I've ever been in my life. I was at zero. I was below zero. But it occurred to me then that, like, I can do whatever the fuck I want now.
That's very true.
Because I have nothing else. So I had to, and this is one of the hardest questions in life. It's not how do I get what I want? It's what do I really want? Like, what do I really want?
That is a great question.
And so I asked myself that question, and I was able to, because usually when you ask yourself that, you weigh it against, well, would I have to quit my job? Would I have to do? Well, I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. So I was able to ask myself that honestly and answer it honestly for myself. And I thought, you know what I really want to be is a writer. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to be a writer. So I started writing. And don't get me wrong. Like, I've always had that bent. Like, I've always written whenever I was whenever I was in, the best way to, like, get out my angst was picking up a pen and writing. So I've always kind of tended toward that, but I never really thought I could even, it was too much to ask for, really, for me. I never thought I would be able to be that blessed. And asking to be a writer is like asking to be a bum for a while. Like, really, it may sound glamorous, but you got to grind, and you got to actually deliver, and you got to write well. You can't just write shit. Like, it doesn't matter. You can write all the shit you want, and no one's gonna read it if it's not good. So, anyway, I just started writing, and I remember getting down on my knees and praying to God. I was like, God, make me a writer so that I may write well. It's the only reason I want to be a writer, so that I can be a good writer. I can write well. I don't want to be a writer to be famous. I don't want to be a writer for any other purpose than to write well. And every time I get off of that, I notice that I start sucking at writing. I just want to write well. And when I write well, it resonates with people. And anyway, I wrote The Perfect Fucking Life over the span of several years, just going grinding through shit. I didn't even think it was a book. It was just little shit that I was writing down here and there. And then I put it into a book, and the Marine Recon Foundation actually helped me publish it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah. They did a fundraiser for me, and got me able they facilitated the publishing of the thing. So yeah, they were amazing. And that was a huge thing for me. It was like giving me new life in a certain way. So I, owe a lot to them. So, but anyway, that's the book, the first book that I wrote, and it's a lot of just like angst, shaking my fist at God kind of stuff. Really, like being honest with myself, being honest with my beliefs. Like, does this really add up? Because when you go to war and you're seeing a bunch of guys killing each other, this guy believes that and this guy believes that, and at the end of the day, we'd probably be buddies.
Right.
Like, what the fuck is going on here? And I wrote some shit down, and feel free to check it out if you want. It's on Amazon. But I'm writing the next book is called Finally Somehow Home, and
that's a good title.
And so it kind of it's the story behind The Perfect Fucking Life, really. The Perfect Fucking Life is just little diatribes and me ranting and poetry and shit, but I hate to say poetry because I fucking hate poetry for the most part, because most of it just sucks. But stuff that actually means something.
Right.
But I really hate most poetry. But anyway,
are you a poet as well? Because I think I read something about that you were.
Yeah, I am.
So it's kind of funny that you hate poetry.
Well, most of it sucks.
You're an enigma.
I actually wrote something on that. I think it says the road to hell is littered with the words of freaking shitty poets or something like that. Like, bad poetry is the worst thing you can ever spend your time on, but good poetry is like the best thing that you can spend your time on.
And there is some very good poetry that is out there.
There is. So anyway, and meaning, like art without meaning, I call it shart. It's
you know what that sounds like, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what it sounds like.
Okay.
Why I call it that. Anyway, so I'm working on the Finally Somehow Home now. That's like the backstory. It's me growing up in Indonesia, all the stuff I went through, all the story of working, contracting and stuff in the military, as much as I can write about it, and all that I did after, and kind of how I, like I said, finally arrived somehow home. So I'm trying to finish it right now. So we should crank that out probably in the next couple of months.
Oh, that's great. That's coming up. I'll tell you, it's going to fly by. So we talked about, for those of you in the chats and that are watching this later on your own time, that when we do hit 100 subscribers, we're going to be doing a giveaway. And so I've asked Jason if he could go ahead and sign a copy of his first book over, and we'll go ahead and depending upon when we get that, we'll either do it at the 100 subscriber mark or the next mark. So keep an eye out for that, but make sure to, when we get done with this show, if you would, make sure that you hit the like button, everybody, make a comment, and then share this with your friends, family, veterans that you know, so that we can help, because a lot of these resources that my guests are sharing aren't just things that they've utilized. They help hundreds and hundreds of people depending upon where you're located. And there's so many veterans that don't know of these because they pop up a lot, new ones here and there, some that have specific specialties. There's one that I posted for Ohio where horses are being rescued, and they're training those horses, and then those now rescued trained horses are there being used now for veterans to help with PTSD and things of that nature. So make sure that you pass this information along, pass this channel along. Lee did post, he is also donating a book as well, so he's going to be signing one over with, putting a little message in that for whoever ends up. We're going to be doing, like I said, a little giveaway. So you are going to need to be present to win, because I am going to need to get, addresses so we can get this stuff mailed out. But I can't help, saying this, I guess, enough, because I have so much respect for each and every veteran out there. And whether you were in the shit, whether you were just support, each and every one of you has volunteered your time nowadays, obviously, since the Vietnam War, and in fact, there's several Vietnam veterans who actually volunteered and weren't just drafted. So, but nowadays, y'all are volunteers, and you're volunteering to step outside of a life that the rest of us know, and you follow your own paths, and you're sacrificing everything. If you have a family, you're sacrificing time with that family. You're sacrificing all of the holidays with your children, birthdays, things like that, if you have that. And to me, it's huge. It's so selfless to do. And I, from the bottom of my heart, thank each and every one of you. I can't stress that enough, because that's huge. It just is. So we've got, let's see. I know Jim did a little bit of, Jim is my computer sleuth. He gets out there. He does a lot of reviewing of stuff for him. So he said that you're doing a great job of helping people get out of their own way and through things. He read several reviews of your book. One in particular says that it's a book that you read and don't place it on a shelf to gather dust. You pick it up again and utilize it. So that's good. And yeah, Jim is great when it comes to this. He really likes to know the ins and outs of things, which is really great.
That's proper. You need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it, Jim. Thank you.
Jason also says to Lee, thank you very much. We also appreciate your support as well. And of course, your buddy Lee says to you, great interview, Elvis. I love you, brother.
You, Sonny.
Is there anything else that you, Jason, can think of that you would like to say to any of the upcoming Marines, Navy, et cetera, anybody who's considering joining the military in general? What kind of words of wisdom do you have for them?
That's funny. Actually, a couple of people have come to me recently and asked me about advice on that. And, it boils down to one thing. Like, you can join the military for a lot of reasons, but whatever you decide to do, make that decision from your courage, not from your fear. That's what I would say.
That's great. That is actually really amazing advice. And to know who they are inside, courage is conquering the fear.
Courage is life. Courage is life.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have it, it sucks to suck. You're going to suck.
It does. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Well, all right. I think I don't see any other questions out there. So I think we are going to go ahead and get this wrapped up. Let's
All
see.
right. Well,
So
thank you
we're
so
going to
much for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
absolutely.
Thank
If you want to stay put for just a minute there, Jason, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get this wrapped up.
you. No worries. Thank you.
I know. I need new music.
I'm just messing with you.
Y'all have a great night. Make sure again, hit that like button and comment on this recording when it's out there. Thanks again to my wonderful guest, Jason Morrison.